Look, going through a divorce is tough. There's no way around it. And right in the middle of all that stress is usually your biggest asset, your home. To make sure everything is handled fairly, you've got to understand the home appraisal. So in this explainer, we're going to break down who orders it, who pays for it, and what happens when you just can't agree on the value.
So, let's just jump right in with a question that gets to the heart of it all. When a couple decides to separate, what is almost always the single biggest, most valuable thing they need to figure out how to divide? Yep, you guessed it, the house. It's so much more than just a place to live. It's a massive financial asset, and figuring out its true, fair market value is absolutely essential for a fair split. That's exactly where the formal appraisal process comes into play.
First up, let's talk about why valuing this asset with a real professional appraisal is so critical. Honestly, it's a non-negotiable step if you want to walk away with a fair settlement. Okay, so who's the one to kick things off? Who actually makes the call to order the appraisal? Well, the answer really depends on how well you and your soon-to-be ex are getting along. And this really lays it all out, doesn't it? You've got two completely different paths. On the left, you see the cooperative route. You both agree on one neutral expert. Simple. But on the right, you have the contested path, and things can get a lot more adversarial, with each side hiring their own appraiser to try and make their case.
And you know, it's not always you or your spouse who makes the call. A lot of the time, attorneys will handle ordering the appraisal on behalf of their clients. And in those really tough, contentious cases, the court can actually step in and order one itself just to keep things moving. All right, let's get to the question that's probably on everyone's mind: money. An appraisal costs a few $100, sometimes more. It's not free. So who's expected to pay for it?
Well, in that best-case scenario, the cooperative divorce, the cost of the appraisal is just treated like any other shared expense. That means you and your spouse will typically just split the bill right down the middle, 50-50, easy enough. But what happens if you don't agree with that first appraisal? This is where things can get a little pricey. As the source material points out pretty clearly, if you're the one insisting on a second opinion, well, you're generally the one who has to pay for it. And let's be super clear about this. That first joint appraisal is a shared cost. But if you decide to challenge it with your own expert, you are likely on the hook for 100% of that second fee. Now, this can be a strategic move, right? You might do it if you really think the first appraisal was way off, but it's a financial gamble for sure.
So this naturally leads to the big what if, right? What happens when you pay for that second appraisal and the two reports come back with wildly different values? How on earth do you resolve that kind of dispute?
The good news is there's a process for this. It's not just a free-for-all. It starts with that disagreement. From there, the lawyers get involved and try to negotiate some kind of compromise. But if they can't make it happen, the whole thing gets kicked up to a judge who ultimately makes the call.
And this right here is the part you really need to understand. When a judge appoints a third appraiser, that report is basically the final word. It's considered neutral, unbiased evidence. The court is going to lean very heavily on this appraisal to make its final ruling, and it often just overrides the first two.
Okay, that was a lot to take in. So let's boil it all down to the absolute must-know takeaways you need to remember as you go through this process.
So here's your cheat sheet. First, and this is a big one, cooperation saves you money, since that joint appraisal is a shared 50-50 cost. Second, if you decide to fight it, just know that contesting it is going to cost you more, because you'll likely pay 100% for that second opinion. Third, remember that your attorney can, and often will, manage this whole thing for you. And finally, if all else fails, the court has the final say. A judge can and will bring in a neutral expert to settle it once and for all.
And it really leaves us with one last question to think about, doesn't it? When it comes to the value of your home, what's the smarter play? Starting with one neutral expert that you both can trust, or battling it out with two opposing ones, only to have a third person decide for you in the end?